Defense Minister of Latvia wants to reintroduce mandatory military service so his country can defend itself in case Russia launches an attack so sudden that NATO can't help prevent it.
Latvia, a NATO and EU member state that borders Russia, ended the mandatory service in 2007.
But earlier this month, Defense Minister Artis Pabriks announced plans to reintroduce the service for 18 to 27-year-olds after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, saying it was a necessary step for the country to survive.
Latvia's president said he also supported the move.
Pabriks, who is also Latvia's deputy prime minister, said that more citizens need military training because the country is expecting an attack from Russia. He said Latvian intelligence suggested a Russian attack could come with little warning, meaning NATO's defenses might not be prepared to stop it. He said, even if we are a NATO member country, our first challenge and danger is coming from a very quick attack from Russia. We have been of course calculating how many forces Russia can gather at our borders within 24 or 48 hours. And knowing that NATO will need a certain time to reflect on that, we must be ready ourselves to defend every inch and every centimeter of our territory. NATO's charter says that an attack on one member state is treated as an attack on all, meaning other nations would come to Latvia's defense. But Pabriks said Latvia, which was occupied by the Soviets before declaring independence in 1990, needs to considerably boost its own defenses as a Russian attack is so likely.
He said, "We are ready to do anything to not repeat our bitter history lessons of when the Soviet Union occupied us. We cannot afford to appear weak. We must be strong. We are not scared and we're simply vigilant, ready, because we're not going anymore to live under this foreign rule and this occupation like our ancestors." Introducing mandatory military service still needs approval from the country's parliament and new legislation. Pabriks expects this to pass, and said it could happen this year, meaning the first 500 people could enter the service in January 2023. These first people would volunteer as part of the plan's first phase, and eventually all Latvian men aged 18 to 27 would be required to do 11 months of service. The 11 months would be made up of 3 months of basic training, 3 months of a specialty course, and 5 months of integration into units and collective training. They would also receive a monthly salary of up to €400, free food and accommodation in army barracks, the defense ministry said. Pabriks said he also believes the plan is popular among most of the population. Pabriks said Russia's invasion of Ukraine proved the need to bring back mandatory military service in Latvia. He said Latvia believes that regardless of whether Russia wins or loses in Ukraine, Russia will remain an unreliable neighbor with imperial ambitions for the next decade. Ukraine, like Latvia, was previously occupied by the Soviet Union, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed that Ukraine is rightly part of Russia as a justification to invade. Pabriks said, "This means Ukraine gives us time to prepare. While Ukrainians are fighting, I am sorry to say, we have a chance as Latvians and as Europeans to prepare." Pabriks said the service would both bolster Latvia's military so it could fight a Russian attack, and also act as a deterrent to Russia's plans. He said, "Russians are not crazy. They will see we are ready to defend. And secondly, if the disaster happens, then we would have enough forces to stand for our freedoms." In terms of what kind of attack Russia could make, Pabriks said anything could happen, because this imperial country never gave up these ambitions. Russia has so far made vague threats against the Baltic countries, of which Latvia is one. In April, Russia said it would put nuclear weapons in the Baltic region, and Estonia has said that Russia was simulating missile attacks against it. Latvia's neighbors have also stepped up their defenses over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sweden and Finland applied to join NATO. Finland plans to build barriers along its Russian border, and Estonia and Lithuania increased military drills. Pabriks said that when his country brings back the military draft, he can't see it ending again as it did 15 years ago. On the other side, Russia threatened to retaliate against Lithuania's restrictions after Vilnius halted the rail transport of Russian goods under EU sanctions to the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, wedged between Lithuania and Poland.
Moscow is angry and seeking alternative corridor from Belarus through Poland. The Russian Foreign Ministry told the Lithuanian envoy in Moscow that if cargo transit between the Kaliningrad region and the rest of Russia through Lithuania was not restored, Moscow would respond to protect its interests. Wedged between Lithuania to its north and east, and Poland to its south, Kaliningrad is about 1,300 kilometers from Moscow and relies on much of its supplies coming in by rail. Kaliningrad, where Russia's Baltic Sea Fleet has its headquarters, has a population of about 500,000 people. It was captured from Nazi Germany by the Red Army in April 1945 and ceded to the Soviet Union at the end of the war. Lithuanian authorities banned the transit of goods which are sanctioned by the European Union across its territory, which includes the only rail route between mainland Russia and the Kaliningrad exclave on the Baltic Sea. Banned goods include coal, metals, construction materials, and advanced technology. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said, "This decision is truly unprecedented, it is a violation of everything. We understand that this is due to the corresponding decision of the European Union to extend sanctions to transit good. We also consider this illegal. The situation is more than serious in this regard, and it requires a very deep analysis before formulating any measures and any decisions. This deep analysis will be carried out over the next few days." In the run-up to the EU Foreign Affairs Council in Brussels, Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielius Landsbergis said the country was enacting sanctions. He said, "First of all, it's not Lithuania doing anything, it is the European sanctions that started working from June 17. The industry that is imposing the sanctions are the Lithuanian railroads. They informed their clients that sanctioned goods will no longer be allowed to transit Lithuania. It is done in consultation with the European Commission and under their guidelines." Later on the speech, the European Commission declined to comment, referring the matter to the EU Foreign Affairs Council. The EU sanctions package, adopted on March 15, imposed restrictions on Russian steel and other metal products. For weeks, Russian state television has been discussing, among other things, whether Moscow should open a corridor from Belarus through Poland, the so-called Suwalki Gap, and thus bypass the land route through Lithuania. The spat has raised concerns about another hotspot in the Baltics, as it follows a week after a draft bill was submitted to the Russian State Duma effectively questioning Lithuania's independence. The area, with a large ice-free Russian Navy base and launch pads for Russian Iskander missile systems, is geographically sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania and has no land connection with Russia. With the restrictions on the rail route, Kaliningrad now has to intensify ship transport.